Just say I do.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of people and events. I'm your host, Keith Willard. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to be talking about day of planning. I mean, as a wedding planner, I hear this often that people are saying that, oh, I've got all the details done, and really, I just need somebody there for the day of. So, is that really true? And what does that really entail? So our guest today is Gaetana, and she is an amazing event planner. But before I bring her on, let me bring on Marcy Gutenberg with an affair to remember by Marcy. Hey, Marcy.
Hello.
So
How are
I
you?
apologize. I'm a little tired.
I can see. I can hear. You sound tired.
I am so tired. So last night we went to the Mondrian, and it was an amazing, amazing experience. They really did a fantastic job. But I never sleep in, by the way, never. And so this morning when at 10 a.m., my husband we got to go. I'm like, what? What's happening? What's happening? Yeah, so that's me.
Too funny.
So yeah.
Well, you only get a little bit of a snippet when you're going to these things. So, at least you get a little reprieve and enjoying a little bit of the taste of what a client gets.
Right. And actually, they did a really beautiful job. Let me, clap, all the things for the Mondrian South Beach. They did a beautiful job for us. It was amazing. And so thank you. And then, of course, then we start talking about planning, day of planning. So that actually was a point of conversation last night when we were talking about day of planners. And I went, oh, that's so random. We have a show about that tomorrow. Because it can come across as a little bit of a dirty word.
It can. I mean, we definitely have a little bit of a disconnect sometimes as to what it really means. So right. I think this would be a great time to bring on Gaetana.
Yeah.
She's just a wealth of information.
Well, let's bring her on. Hello, Gaetana. Welcome.
Hi, Gaetana.
Hey, how is everyone?
Hey, we love having you back.
Great
we do.
No, I mean, this is your 8th time.
Yeah. And I thank you.
But seriously, I mean, so one of the things that I love about you is that you used to be in charge of a venue, yes. Right? So one of the best venues actually here in South Florida that closed its doors, and then you decided to go out on your own. And I just think that you're brilliant at what you do.
Oh, thank you.
And I think a lot of that is that kind of day of logistics, but it's more than that, right?
So much more.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit of what was it like leaving the venue and then starting your company, and then we'll get into the rest.
So the first word that comes up is scary, because you're so used to having that home every day and a routine, and right. All of a sudden that routine is thrown into something that I've always done, but I've always done it from a space. I've not right. always done it just on my own, as all of you do. So working at home. I work from home. My office is here at home. So it was a little bit more getting used to getting a routine. But once you get into the middle of it, and I think that if it's something you've always done, of course, it's like riding a bike. You just keep doing it. But I think that really what I came to love about it is more that feeling of it's what I love to do best. Right. I love being with the clients. I love being in front of the brides, and I love being with everybody. And that day of is exhilarating. So more than just being a sideline, being a manager of a venue.
So let's talk about that. So, when as a planner, right, that's typically involved either impartial or full. And I get somebody that calls me and says, look, I really have everything done. I just need somebody there the day of. Right. And I mean, my skin crawls. I have the whole thing starts to happen because I'm like, please do not tell me that you're talking about day of, because many times they don't have everything done, right?
Totally.
So I want you to really define, what does day of mean?
So Day of is somebody that's really going to be there, obviously, on the day of to manage all the fine details that
Yeah.
you'll go over together with the couple. But of course, you have to go over all of that with the vendors too. So it's not one sided. It's not like they say, "Oh, we have everything done. Just come at 9 o'clock the day of, and you've got this because you've done this before." That's
Right.
really not right. You have to get with your caterer to figure out timing and tables and people. You many times the clients don't even have a floor plan made because they assume that either the rental company that they might be working with or the caterer they're working with or somebody is going to just do that for them. And
Right.
magically, all of the guests are going to have seats that day and everybody knows what meal they're having. And all of these, that's
Yeah.
what they interpret as, oh, we've got everything done.
Right.
They don't. I have a 4 or 5 page questionnaire that I have to go over with every single couple just for day of that has nothing to do with full on planning or even partial planning because
Really?
all of those
4
details
pages.
they feel, 4 full
Yeah.
pages, all of those details that they feel that they've covered. I'll go through the questionnaire and they'll say, gee, I didn't think of that. Or
Right? I mean,
I
that happens all the time.
All the
Right?
time.
You're like, okay, do you have your song for your first dance?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you know what? We haven't thought about that. I'm like,
Who's doing
okay.
speeches? When would you like them to do a speech? Are you doing a special exit?
Right.
Where are you entering from for first, for the grand entry? Where are you coming in for walking down the aisle?
Are you doing a first look?
Correct.
You
All
know?
these questions that come to life when you sit down with them and ask them, and they wonder why you can't just show up with their details that they seemingly have for
Right.
their whole wedding plan and just be able to run a wedding.
Because there's so
And you're
much
having
more.
all that, and you're
you
having
know?
all those conversations with all of their vendors
All of their
before
vendors.
the day of.
Correct.
Right.
The caterer will have a timeline. The photographer and the videographer will have a timeline. The DJ wants to know the timeline because you're seemingly creating it for them. They don't realize that you need one. They think that they can just give you all these details and you're just going to magically make those details work on the day of, and it doesn't. You need a good month to be able to put all of those details together in a nice neat package and tie it up with a bow and be able to run it that day and make it work.
Well, talking about magic, hello, Brooke.
Hi.
Hello.
You had that timeline.
You
My favorite
made
thing.
it. Oh my God. I'm so
Awesome to
excited
see
that you
you.
actually showed up.
Earlier
What?
than most.
Yay.
I know. It's incredible.
Dave.
But one of the things that I don't really understand is that I'll have somebody that will call me and say, look, I need day of because I don't want to have to stress about this.
Correct.
But then once we go through that 4-page questionnaire, they don't have a florist, or they don't have a DJ, or they don't have like another major item that's part of the wedding in general. And all they ask is, well, can you give me at least some direction? And I'm like, that's more of a partial versus and a full versus day of.
Correct. Or sorry, my earphone there is giving me trouble. Or they have their own plan to do everything themselves. I love the bride that tells me I'm doing my own centerpieces.
Sorry, I just choked. Oh,
I
Good luck.
While they've got their makeup going on and everything else.
I know. We're all of us just choked a little bit.
One of
I'm
my
like,
favorites
what?
is I'm doing my own centerpieces, and I think to myself, you just don't have time, girl. And I get it. You're very ambitious, but make your bouquet, bring it with you. If that's really where you feel you need to have a DIY moment.
Right.
But setting up your tables is not something you actually will have time for on the day of your wedding. And I don't know how many people I have to explain that to. You're not saving any money by giving yourself extra stress.
Nope. And by the way, Brooke, do you remember that wedding that we did at the girls club in South Miami? Remember that with all the boxes of fake flowers? And so they came and they were all squished, right? Flat, because the bride wanted to save a little bit of money. So she ordered these online and they were fake. And then we spent 2 hours just pulling them and straightening them to make sure that they look good on the table. It was incredible. It was just so much work.
They look good though, right? Those are the ones that looked almost real. Is that the one
Actually,
we're
they
talking about?
did. Actually, at the end of the day, but it still took a lot
it
of our
was
time. You know,
if they weren't fluffed, they would have looked like trash.
Money saving,
but they're taking their day of planner away from doing other things.
100%.
That is 100% correct.
Right. And then what do you say to people when they say, well, what else? What are you doing really the day of?
And that is a really common question. Like, what is it that you do? We're the ones walking down the aisle. We're saying our vows. We're doing all the dancing. What is it that you do? And I don't think that until the actual day, they understand all the background noise that you have to create in order to make that day happen. You're running to the photographer, you're going to the caterer. You may have to wait 15 minutes for rain. You know, in these outside weddings, you can never tell when it comes to weather. You have to hold it back. I love the brides that say we have a 4:00 guest call, and at 4:20, there's nobody in the seats. And 4:25, when you're ready to line up, you have 10 people sitting there. So you have to go back and tell them we need to wait a little bit.
Oh God.
Or you're walking down an empty aisle, and I know that's not what you want. So now you're having, again, to go to catering and fix the timing and go to the DJ and let everybody know. They don't see any of that extra movement or extra detail that you're putting into it because you know what you're doing. And they would never be able to do that, because how are you going to do that as the bride?
Well, and the thing is that we have to typically, if you're a day of planner, typically we have to put out the fires that they set 3, 4, 5 months ago, because they didn't talk to the photographer that said, oh no, I'm only doing 5 hours, not 8 hours. And they're like, where's my photographer? A timeline has to be done at least 30 days before. If you have a day of person, when are they really doing that? You really need something more. If you're going to, if you had an assistant, you would give them direction. Why not the planner?
Right.
Correct. And I think that all-powerful timeline, when they finally do receive my timeline and they see the attention to each little detail, putting on the boutonnieres at a certain time because the bride is getting dressed. So now the photographer is working with the grooms and the groomsmen. So you're putting on boutonnieres. And how many of you have had your hands as the one in the picture putting the boutonniere on, right? And then needs that because mom isn't there yet to either help or know how to do it. So we all have been there and gone the extra mile, and they don't see that until day of. And how many times at the end of the day did they say, wow, we really didn't understand what your job was, but you were amazing. And thank you for all that you did for us today.
Do you think day of people charge too little overall? Like, when I tell people what my rate is for day of, they're like, oh my God. It's like, no. I'm like, because I know what it's going to take. And I understand that it's not just day of. I'm going to be helping you from now until the wedding. So it's not really day of. It's kind of day of plus. Right. And I feel like a lot of people that get into this like world of event planning don't really understand that. And that's where they start. They're like, okay, I'm going to do some day of. I'll get a little quick money in my pocket, and then I'll be able to build my business. But I don't think they really understand what goes into that.
That's the day of. Sometimes 90% of the times the day of is the hardest. Like if you're going to start with that, you might want to rethink that, because that is the hardest. On your toes, think fast, be able to do 7 things at once type of gig.
Yeah.
Right.
Am I right, Kate?
Ladies, please, you're right there.
Yeah. And because you have a shorter span of time to put it together, you are working with them a lot more hours in a very short period of time. That 30 days doesn't give you a lot of time to put all of their items together every single time. Or what about when they throw something in the mix, that you don't know about because you haven't been there with them long enough, and they might have mentioned it 8 or 9 months ago when they were talking about it. They didn't get on to the day of planner that they were having a high school marching band. And I'll have somebody come and pat me on the shoulder and say, "Oh, are you the day of? We're the band." Be like,
"Oh my God,
band, a high school marching band."
Marching band just show up at a wedding, or you're watching the ceremony and a truck drives by with a horse and carriage on it, and you're like, "Wait a minute, I didn't know anything about horse and buggy. When is that happening?
Yes, yes, that's what I'm talking about. That kind of stuff.
We decided to have a coach. So there's a lot of things that you have to spring into motion at that last minute and make it seem seamless to everybody else that's there, that it was planned all along and nobody knows the difference.
Do you think that couples really understand the value of having a day of or a partial planner? Because that's kind of one of they're like, oh, wait, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, well, yes, because I'm here to make sure that you're making the right decisions. And if I get a discount, you get the discount, right?
That is correct. That is correct.
So when we talk about value of what we do, is there a way to kind of put that in the real world? Like, how do you explain your value?
So what I tell them is that, I sort of act that day as I'm your not only your planner, coordinator, everything else wrapped into one ball that day as your coordination, but I'm your virtual volume. I'm heading off
on heels.
the unruly mother-in-law that you've been crying over for the last 3 weeks.
Right.
To be the wall between the two of you so she doesn't make you crazy and you have a great day. There's so many little details that one of my questions on there is actually, are there any special items I need to know about family members or family dynamics that are going to maybe put a damper on your ceremony or during speeches that I need to head off before they happen? There's many times where I have to not let somebody speak because they may say something
inappropriate
or uncommon, either about the couple or about the other parent if there's a divorce. And you have to take the uncomfortable position off of the couple and be able to do these things in a very diplomatic way to not hurt anyone's feelings that day. And that's a really big role. You're the psychologist, the psychiatrist, you're the ringleader, you're so many different things that day. And you know that as a planner too. That's not just as day of. However, day of, you might be learning about it that day.
So how soon should somebody book a day of planner? If they're out there in the world and they're like, look, I've got my venue, I've got my photographer, I've got my DJ, I'm on it, I'm A-type personality, that kind of stuff. When do you book a day of person?
I think just as you're booking a planner, you should have the peace of mind in knowing that you have somebody in your corner right from the get-go. And it's always good to get somebody right in the beginning, sometimes even before you're getting your other vendors, because they may be able to help you in your vendor choice.
Right.
To get somebody that's going to work correct for you. Say, I've worked with this gamut of people. Maybe it's good for you to try and get in touch with them.
Right.
They'll have a vendor list. Who have you worked with? It's a good idea to have somebody from the beginning just for that little bit of advice, even though you're not doing that real work for them as a planner, maybe as a partial, but at least you'll be working with the right people the day of, and you're not having to help somebody that's going to bungle it. We've all been there. We've all worked with people that we've never heard of, might be very new, might not know a venue very well.
Right.
And it's good to have somebody that can sort of help you over those stumbling blocks. So I think it's good to have at least the peace of mind that someone that you might have a question for in the very beginning while you're still trying to get that planning done, just a phone call, text.
But when does it cross the line? Because day of is very specific. It's day of logistics. Period.
I think it crosses the line when they're telling you to either look at or try to go through contracts, look at timing and all of those things. That's not what I'm there for.
And then how do you explain that to the client?
You have to be very direct. If they want to go into something, they'll ask you usually right on. And do you look at my contracts? Do you tell me if I'm doing the right thing? Do you help me over those speed humps? No, because then it becomes planning or partial planning, and that's a whole different direction. We can go there, but if you're thinking about specifically day of because you think you can get most of this together, or I take all the pieces and put them in their final place, then that's day of coordination. And I'm not going to be going over any real specifics with you until that 30-day mark. That doesn't happen.
And does day of include timeline typically?
Daya for me includes timeline because I like to know that I'm doing what I like to do. If I go by a bride's timeline, I happen to have one coming up that she wrote me a timeline, she sent me a timeline, but it just doesn't make sense. They have one
I love that.
right after another. They have speeches in the wrong places, and you have to explain to them why it won't work.
Right.
A kitchen can't collect salad and immediately have dinner on the table. How many of them want that? They want to get everything done right away, and we understand that you want all optimal party time, but the kitchen just can't do it. So especially in an outside wedding, sometimes in a country club, you can have a little bit more control on that, or a hotel,
right?
But typically they need time in between things, and the guest just doesn't understand. It's not a dinner for 10.
Oh, it's not. And that's the other thing is that, sometimes the day of will come in and it's 250 people. And you're like, oh, okay, wait, I need staff. I need other people that isn't covered under the day of, quote unquote. So there's a lot of contingencies that come into the whole idea.
Agreed. When you have over a certain amount of people, like I won't do a wedding by myself over 75 people.
Me neither.
Over 75 people, I'm going to need an assistant, and then that changes the price.
Right.
You have to pay an assistant, and they want to know why. Why does your price change? Well, because this is the money I make for doing your job, and an assistant also would need to get paid. So that's not covered under that same heading. We need to go somewhere else. And what if it's different locations? There's a church location, there's a reception location. That also could change things.
Marcy?
Right. For example, if you're talking about having a ceremony in one place and a reception in another place, the client may want to use the same chairs in both different, in each place, but they don't realize it can't go from point A to point B. So now you have to tell the client, you have to order double the amount of chairs because there's no time to get it from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Yeah. The logistics of things like that, Marcy, those types of things, that is what we run into the most when it does come to day of, because again, people just don't understand that you can do magic, but you can't do ultimate magic.
Right. I don't think people really understand
wave the magic wand.
Right. Exactly. And the thing is that as planners, we really do everything we can to sprinkle the area.
Fairy dust.
Oh yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes.
To try to make sure that it's absolutely perfect, or as perfect as it can be. It's amazing how many situations I've walked into and went, oh crap, okay, this isn't right. And so when people think of day of, I would love for planners to get away from the idea of day of and maybe do a day of plus, right? Because we want our clients, somebody to go to that's in the industry, that has the knowledge, that can give them the right direction. And then also it helps us at the end of the day if we're doing just day of, because then we've already put out fires ahead of time.
You're going to stop and think about your company and your business's reputation too.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That's a huge thing to think about.
And I think everything that you
No, Gaetan, you. Oh, she froze.
I was day of.
Yeah.
But it is more partial. It is more something where you're taking more of that responsibility.
Yeah.
So your price is affected by it, and your items are affected by it. And it was something that we had discussed previous. It's learn and burn. You go to
learn and burn. I love that.
Learn and burn. You go and you start saying, well, I'm day of. And you start taking on more and more and more and more. And you say, well, that's not really what I signed up for. Right. I do want their day to be wonderful. And I want to do everything in my power to make sure that their day is the best day ever.
Right.
But am I underselling myself? Do I need to do something a little bit different? Do I need to be more assertive in who I am and what I do? There's so many different questions, such as, I'm sure you've all been asked this before. Just send me your price sheet.
I always tell Keith, it's your job to talk them out of bad decision making. Always. Yep.
Yes.
It is. That's part of your job.
At some point, it comes across as taking advantage, right? So they hire you for day off and they say, oh, by the way, do you have any recommendations for a band? I'm like, you know what? It's taken me 20 years to curate my list. That's part of a partial planner or a full planner. So, unfortunately, it's not something that I can share. And then I get the look. Like,
another reason for that though too is you might be sharing some of your information, but you're going to share your information. They're going to go to them directly. And how does this
oops.
Part of the reason we do recommend people is because we want them to know that share and share alike. I recommend you, you recommend me. It goes back and forth. We scratch each other's back.
Right.
But if somebody calls a company direct and they just say, I'm looking for pricing, now it has nothing to do with the fact that you may have even mentioned them. And that's something that I don't care for. When I'm going to be working with somebody or I'm going to be recommending somebody, I want them to know that it came from me.
Yep.
Don't be greedy. Pigs get slaughtered.
That's true.
That's greed.
Well, no, my favorite thing is that actually I had a bride that actually didn't hire me, but used my name when talking to vendors. And they gave right. And they gave her the discount, gave her my discount, but she never hired me.
Oh, that's just wrong.
And I went, okay.
Nice.
And that's because I get so excited when I'm first talking to a couple. It's like, wow, amazing. Okay, I want to talk. So I've had to learn how not to give too much info because they're writing it down. They're going, oh,
don't overshare, darling.
Yeah. Oh, and they're reaching out to those vendors that I mentioned in that initial conversation and then doing it on their own.
Well, you know what? A lot of them will also ask a question that you asked before is, why do I need somebody like you?
Right.
It's always good to be able to give those examples. When I was running the venue and I was just background noise. I was the white noise in the background because I was just the building. Is the building open? The lights are on, the AC works, the security staff, the bathroom staff are here. Good. My job is done. I can go sit in my office and let this event go on unless somebody needs me. Because I'm just the building. My things are working, so I can kind of walk away.
My staff is there. It's done.
And at the end of the night, I actually had a bride. The bride and groom were waiting for their ride. Everything else was done. Everyone was gone. Vendors are cleaning up. And the came. And I, is there something missing? Do I need to go and get something? I'm just standing there to lock the door.
Right.
I said, I never did my dance with my father.
Oh.
Because she didn't have a day of, she didn't have a planner. She wanted to do it all herself. No matter how many times I offered and said, you really need somebody. At the end of the day, brides and grooms get caught up in what's going on for the day. And she never did her father-daughter dance. She didn't think of it. She didn't have a timeline. The DJ was a friend.
Oh, never hire a friend.
So
I think couples get caught up.
Yeah,
I think couples do get caught up in the sense that they feel that they're saving money. And what they're doing is they're doing a disservice to themselves because ultimately they don't want to necessarily, a lot of times they'll say, I don't want to listen to the professional. I know what I need. And they really, unfortunately, they have never been married before, or if they've been married, maybe they've been married once before, but they don't know the inner workings of who they're working with, all of the vendors, all of the details. That's what we've worked through, worked to gain that knowledge through years and years. Right. And we're here to help our clients. And I think that they kind of miss that step. They think we kind of just, we're all just about the party and, we get to have a glamorous life and so forth. But they really don't understand.
Glamorous, my ass.
Glamorous.
What?
I think a lot of the people that get into this industry is because we really want to be there to help our clients.
Right.
But we really ultimately want to be there to help our clients. And it's not
at the end of the day, how much was that father-daughter dance worth to you?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And,
something you can never
recreate.
You can't recreate.
You can't put a price on that. I don't
never.
And, to remember that when you're getting in your car at the end of the night is so sad. But when you don't have somebody such as myself or any of you out on a floor saying, we need to do this, we haven't done this yet. And then you realize at the end of everything that you can't get that back. That's so sad. But I think what a lot of people do as well, they go to a wedding and they think that the entire job that we have is just getting everybody down the aisle.
Right.
That the ceremony is the part. And after the ceremony, it's just fun and games. It's just
what's he doing? What is he doing? Nothing. Just running my ass off. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. No, and and the thing is that when you're talking about day of, I really try to push my clients to do at least a partial, because I'm like, look, I'm going to be giving you my advice, my contacts, my everything to help you save money. I mean, that's at the end of the job. At the end of the day, I want to keep you in your budget. That's my job. I want to keep you in your budget, not to spend extra money. Many times I'm going to tell you, why are you doing that? It's like, okay, favors suck. Don't do a favor. I hate favors.
Nobody wants them. They leave them on the tables, and you go home with the entire box you brought, with the exception of the 4 that the parents, because it's important to them, and nobody else, because they don't need a glass with your initials on it. They're not doing shots at home for any reason whatsoever with your shot glass at any time in the near future. I agree.
Yeah, but how many times do we save our clients? Sorry, go ahead, Marcy.
I would much rather see, I mean, I sell favors, but I don't do them that often anymore. First of all, people don't do them that often. People aren't doing them that often. And I would much rather see them do it on the finer details, such as the invitation, the menu cards, maybe some signage. I mean, those are the things that people are going to remember. They're going to remember those little tiny details, not the favor tchotchke thing that's going to go and collect dust.
Agreed. I agree.
Agreed.
Into things, and that is exactly my sentiment when they start speaking about those things. Put it into something that's more memorable. The little gift that you think they're going to take home, the little jar of honey, they're going to bring it home. It's going to go in a cabinet. It's going to go dry and stale before they even open it.
And they're never going to use it.
Yeah, they're never going to use it. So, Gaetana, if somebody is looking for, let's say that you have a couple out there and they're like, okay, wait, we've got a venue, we've got a DJ, we've got a photographer, but, I just would like somebody there for the day to make me feel more comfortable. What should they be looking for? What are the questions they should be asking?
Well, I don't even know that it's a question of, do I need? I really think that every single wedding needs someone there to at least take the lead and take that whatever that thought process is off the bride and groom. You're not supposed to be thinking about what to do next at your wedding. You're supposed to just enjoy yourself. You want to take direction to a degree and be able to enjoy it. When you're trying to think of what to do next, or did the oh my gosh, the caterer didn't pour the champagne, or why aren't there rolls on the table?
Oh, that's my favorite. The rolls on the table.
Exactly. And I think, the most important part is the couple really needs to live in the moment. This is the one day they're going to look back at for the rest of their life together. That's their start of their marriage.
I just think that trying to run your own wedding is like trying to deliver your own child. You can't.
Just as painful. Yes, just as painful. I love that.
And we also didn't even touch on the fact that, the day of, what if there's a weather issue that you all have to tend to?
So true.
Those are big things that you have to deal with.
How many of us have weddings? I know I have weddings this weekend, and there's 70 to 75% chance.
I know, of rain. It's just crazy. Unbelievable. The weather down here, it's just been over the top.
It's been an early hurricane season for sure.
I'm going to run between the raindrops. Don't worry, we'll run between the raindrops.
Yeah, and your hair is going to look beautiful.
You're awesome, but your guests don't want to stand in the rain. So we need to come up with plan B, because you have 100 other people that don't feel the same way as you do. It's not romantic to them. It's a wet dress and wet hair and wet everything else, and they don't want to be involved in that. So you're right. Weather is huge, and people just don't know how to approach that on the day of. You know what they do? They get nervous. They freeze up.
Yep. They do.
Oh my gosh, what happens next? Well, if you have somebody there holding your hand, letting you know what to do and telling you it's going to be okay, you feel a lot better and you can enjoy yourself more. You can be yourself. But if you're tensed up and you're wondering what's going to happen because it's thundering and lightning and I go on in 5 minutes,
right?
That's not the way to handle it. I really think it's important to have somebody there, whether it be day of, partial, or full.
Right.
As you say, Keith, I also don't like to say just day of. Partial is really where I'm at most of the time too now, because you become that anyway.
Yeah. Every time.
So why not just start it from that point?
Well, which is why I have it like a day of plus, not a day of plus. Correct. Which means that they have access to me from now until the wedding to, ask those questions, those random questions. But partial really means that I'm going to go to the appointments. I'm going to use my influence to get that bill down. To add those discounts. Yeah.
Now, how many times that you do partial are you working with them several months out and they're going to call you with question? You want to be able to answer them. You want to be thorough. You want them to feel comfortable with you. So you are answering these questions. But I don't think they recognize how many times they do call you or text you or better yet.
90% of the time. 90%. I swear, 90% of the time they're doing that. Yeah, 90%. It's
so
crazy.
Now you're talking with a multitude of people about the same wedding. So you're giving a lot of advice, and you're giving the same advice to multiple people. But that's your time.
I know.
It's your time. It's your job.
And you should be paid for it. Period.
And you should
exactly.
You can't call a lawyer and get free consultation every single time you call them. You get one consultation, and after that, their time is on the clock, and you pay them. Well, we're the same.
When you're designing, or when you're creating, or you're helping anybody, and you're being taken away from doing something else for someone else or yourself, it is time. Time is money.
Right.
100%.
It is.
And if you are that, you have to value yourself, as you said, Brooke. Give yourself value.
So talking about time, we're there. Oh no!
My goodness, that was fast.
Oh my God! So Gaetana, if people wanted to reach out to you, see you, connect with you, how would they do that?
I'm on Facebook, Gaetana Events. I'm on Instagram, Gaetana.events. My phone number is probably visible on all of those places, so it's being passed around. Most of what I get is actually recommendation from other brides, which is so great. There's usually people from a wedding party, but Facebook and Instagram, it's again, Gaetana Events. I didn't feel I was competing with anybody else with the name, so I went with it. It was kind of an
sure thing.
Kind of a sure thing. I really hope this opened up a little bit of insight as to who we really are and what we really do.
Yeah.
As day of, because all of us have been there.
Yep. We've all been there.
And I really thank you for allowing me to share what that part of what I do is on the show. It's really important.
Well, and I love the way you explain it to your clients. You're like, I will show up at 2 p.m. I will be there until 8 p.m. And this is exactly what I'm going to do. Boom, 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 boom. And I love that. It's straightforward. It's on a list for you. And when people say, well, can't you be there earlier? Well, I can, but here's the price. Time is money. Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. Anyway, Gaetana, thank you so much. We love having you on the show. I love the fact that you're so straightforward. You don't hide anything. You're like, look, this is exactly what it's like out there. And you are amazing. And by the way, as a planner that worked with her as a venue, she was amazing, and she's even more amazing as a planner. So guarantee it, if you're looking for somebody, reach out to her because she's amazing. Much appreciated. Thank you so very much for having me on. Yeah, and then of course Brooke and Marcy, thank you so much. We will see you next Tuesday at 2:00. But for now, we're going to say goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.